The tabernacle was a totally necessary structure. It was gloriously designed. It was beautifully made. It was the most stunning tent the world had ever seen, but at the end of the day, it was still a tent. And of course, that was utterly necessary and appropriate because, well, for 40 years of wilderness wandering, that tent had to be regularly packed up and put away and carried on to the next place. The Israelites entered the promised land a long time ago. There is permanence now for the people of God, and so surely it is time for the Ark of God to dwell in a permanent building as well. Just as a matter of interest, you'll notice that the place where the Ark now dwells is never called the tabernacle. The tabernacle and the ark have been separated from each other for a very long time, ever since 1 Samuel chapter 4, when the ark was taken down into battle, then captured by the Philistines. It never did return to the tabernacle again. The ark was hidden in the home of Obed-Edom for many years, and has now been brought up to Jerusalem. But the tabernacle itself was now 500 years old or so. I imagine its glory would have somewhat faded over those intervening years. Given that the ark is now dwelling not even in the tabernacle, but a lesser tent than that, it seems all the more disrespectful, and the discrepancy seems all the greater between the place where God's throne dwells and the place where David's throne dwells. David's throne room would be glorious, and God's throne room would be grim, grotty, utterly unimpressive. I imagine David looking out across the kingdom from his rooftop vantage point and seeing the tent of God nearby, and with a growing sense of dissatisfaction, deciding that something has got to be done about that. And so he said to Nathan the prophet, "Here I am living in a house of cedar, while the ark of the covenant of the Lord is in a tent." Nathan replied to David, "Whatever you have in mind, do it, for God is with you." Nathan, I think, is acting on an understandable impulse. That someone says they want to do something selfless and generous to glorify God and bless his people. Very few of us would say, I'm not sure about the wisdom of that. No, Nathan encourages him to go ahead and do it. But, it transpires, this was Nathan's plan, not God's. That night, the word of the Lord came to Nathan, saying, "Go and tell my servant David, this is what the Lord says. You are not the one to build me a house to dwell in." And now God spends some time reminding David of all that he has done for him so far, and all that he will do through him in the future. And you'll notice that as God tells this history of Israel, that he is the one who takes the initiative. He is the one who makes the plans. He is the one who has the power, and he is the one who deserves the praise. This is all the work of God. This is what the Lord Almighty says. "I took you from the pasture, from tending the flock, and appointed you ruler over my people Israel. I have been with you wherever you have gone, and I have cut off all your enemies from before you. Now I will make your name like the names of the greatest men on earth, and I will provide a place for my people Israel, and I will subdue all your enemies. And then I declare to you that the Lord will build a house for you." You understand this is a play on words. David is talking about a literal building, and God is talking about a bloodline. "I will build the house of God," says David. No, "I will build the house of David," says God. And he immediately talks about his offspring, his descendants, those who will come after him. The Lord says that he will establish the house of David forever. It is a glorious promise. It is a stunning prophecy. And we have the benefit of being able to see that it will all come to pass because of Jesus. Because of him, the name David will never grow into obscurity, and this kingdom will never end. Now, just quickly see David's response to all this. If David was arrogant and self-important and self-impressed, he could well have said to God, "What do you mean you cut down my enemies before me? I'm the one who marched out so bravely. I'm the one who fought so valiantly. I'm the one who won these battles so consistently. I'm a celebrated soldier." But David understands that everything he has is from the Lord. His strength, his courage, his skill, every bit of it is not ultimately from himself, but is a gift from the hand of his good and generous God. So you'll see in his response, he's not insulted. He is delighted with all that God has done and all that God has promised that he will do in the future. And now, Lord, let the promise you have made concerning your servant and his household be established forever. Do as you promised. Why? So that David will be praised? No, do as you promised, so that it will be established and that your name will be great forever. Then people will say, the Lord Almighty, the God over Israel, is Israel's God. He wants people to pour out their praise for the God who keeps his promises. And every single person who has ever put their trust in Jesus as the Messiah, the long-awaited Son of David, born into the world to save his people from their sins, the rightful ruler and the King of all kings, every person who has put their trust in Jesus is an answer to David's prayer that God's name will be great in all the earth because of the promise made right here.